Welcome again. James is a living legend, and his football team is now national champion.
With Stanley's coach.
And the people at USC wish we had hired Ed Ogeron as our head coach. James and I have been friends for, as I reckon it, I think 36 years. And I'd like to spend the first 5 or 10 minutes of this conversation talking about him and his career, and then move on to what's happening in politics in 2020. James, how'd you get from the Marine Corps to politics?
You know, I was in Baton Rouge, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, I'm either going crazy, going to jail, or going out of town. And I kind of took the third option. And actually, Peter Hart and Mark Shields got me a job managing a campaign in Virginia in 1982, which I lost. And then you and I met in Texas Senate race in 84, which I lost. And I was in my 40s going nowhere. And then Bob and I worked on a governor's race in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, and I went on maybe the hottest streak ever and culminating in 92. So, you know, I was a lawyer. I looked out of my window and I said, you know, if I had to hire a lawyer, I wouldn't hire me. So I'm not going to ask anybody else to. And the most satisfying day of my life was in 1988 in New Jersey when I was sat at my desk. I said, you know what? If I had to hire a campaign manager, I would hire me. And that's a good feeling. I wouldn't do it now, but that. And thank God for people like you. I always tell my students, be damn sure you're not the smartest person in the room. Well, if you're around Bob Trump, you don't have to worry about that. You're not going to be the smartest person in the room. And I learned a lot by being around talented people. And I've taken more good from my friends than my friends have taken from me, and that's a good feeling. And Bob, you're certainly in that category.
Well, thank you, but can I just ask you a little bit about the Clinton campaign? Why'd you post that sign, "It's the economy, stupid," in the headquarters?
Because, for a simple reason, to remind people what we're really about. Because if you get there, somebody's going to say, well, we need to do an event on housing, restoration of housing historical tax credits. Well, you may have to do that. You just don't need to talk about it. All right? And remember, the economy's stupid. Don't forget health care. But really, it was change versus more of the same. In somehow or another, Democrats think there's something wrong with communicating succinctly. That we have to really explain in great depth. So we have to have a 15-point plan for everything.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah. I mean, Elizabeth Warren started out with the most compelling bio of anybody ever run for president. She had the number one critique, and that is corruption. And then she started talking about 40-point plans and wine caves and everything else and lost her way. If she'd have just talked about being the little girl from Oklahoma that was scared in law school and fought all the way and knew what was happening to people, she'd be fine. She'd be fine. But that was really what I had. All these people were really smart that had all these ideas, and the sign was, don't come to me with more goddamn smart ideas. Just take these three and make them work.
So we're fine.
Well, I mean, it's true.
Well, what 3 ideas would you use this year?
Corruption. That the entire thing, that they're right, it's stacked against them. And the system is rigged. I'm sorry, I mean, it's helped me. I mean, I help with the rigging. But it's not where you're not hitting people where they live. I mean, look, I am not a moderate. I'm a liberal guy. I'm just not a leftist. I'm not a communist, but I'm pretty liberal. Why don't somebody have a proposal which people have talked about? The drug companies say they have to charge all this because of research. We'll take care of the research. Federal drug research would be 0.0005% of the federal budget. We'll do the research for you. In return, we're going to talk about drug pricing. I mean, this is insane. And people feel that every day. My sister's a home health nurse. People, if they got taking blood pressure medication and they knock it over, and they can't get it for the rest of the month. They can't get insulin. And that's not a rare event in this country. And, that's many areas you could talk about any number of things. But what happens is it's an opportunity cost. When you're talking about something else, you're not talking about that. And that's why I believe in limited, repetitive communications. Because you're not going to hurt yourself if you have a press conference about historic preservation. I love historic preservation. By the way, New Orleans, it saves us, and it's a great idea. It's just not something to talk about in the middle of a political campaign.
Let's.
Now we'll get all historic preservation people mad at me, but that's okay.
No, that's all right. There's Modernism Week here. You can come back for it. Let's talk about Bernie Sanders. It's five days before the Iowa caucuses. The press is full of stories that he's moving, he could win Iowa, he could win New Hampshire. What do you think about Sanders as a Democratic presidential nominee?
Okay. Again, I'm not a socialist. Okay, I'm pretty aggressive market intervener. I'm pretty much for progressive taxation and everything else. But let's back up. There's an article this morning that Sanders has ordered his staff to figure out what he can get done by executive order. So let's assume Sanders' theory of the case is right, that he will excite young voters and that'll bring him to victory. Of course, he's already saying, remember this, 18% of the United States elects 52 senators. So when you're in Los Angeles, or in New York, and you're in Boston, 18% elects 52 senators. So Sanders is going to get in. Mitch McConnell is going to be the majority leader. John Roberts is going to be on the Supreme Court.
You don't think Democrats could take the Senate with a
Sanders? Sanders doesn't think they're going to take the Senate. He's ordering to see what he can do via executive order because he knows he's not going to be able to get it done legislatively. And, of course, they'll be tied up in Republican courts forever. We'll get slaughtered in 2022, and nothing will change in America. Nothing. The only way you're going to change this country, and you have to have a massive election, and you have to win the White House, you have to keep the House, and you got to win the Senate. Then you can change it. But if you think that we get 281 electoral votes and win the presidency, I mean, it'll be good. We won't have criminals in the cabinet, but that's better than that. We'll have competent, presumably we'll have competent ambassadors and stuff like that. But that's all you're going to get. You got to think bigger than that. This is an election that the Democrats should win big. We have a pool, 57% of the voters available to us. That's a good number. It's a real good number.
So, who could win big?
Well, somebody that comes up, if somebody that comes up and has a narrative, all right? Biden maybe, I don't know, if he looks like he hangs in there and it's going to be a tough thing, if Klobuchar, if Warren made a comeback and said that she learned a lot on the campaign trail, I don't know. And when somebody starts winning, the dynamics around the election change. All right, I mean, there's a reasonable chance that we go to Milwaukee without a nominee. And boy, if you want to see what's going to be a big mess, that everybody in the world is going to be out there in those streets.
And there's going to be huge pressure to nominate whoever comes in with a plurality of the delegates.
Right. But the people that said Bernie Sanders, he is not a Democrat. Okay? Neither are his people. The Trump people are not Republicans. I know David Bossie. I know, what's his name, the state top, Corey Lewandowski. They tell me how much they hate the Republican Party, and of course they've destroyed it. And so what are we going to do? So they let Trump destroy their party, so we're going to let Bernie destroy this party? Because that's what's going to happen. And I'm a Pelosi Democrat. Maybe you're going to be, well, you're moderates. I don't know why but I am. But you got to win. The only thing that matters, people, is having power. If you don't have power, it doesn't matter. We win every argument. We win the argument on higher taxes for the wealthy. We win the argument on Social Security. We win the argument on Medicare. We win the argument on Obamacare. We win the argument on Roe. We win the argument on climate. But we don't win elections. I'm tired of winning arguments. I really am. Unless you understand that the pursuit and acquisition of power is what politics is about. And I hear people saying, they give these speeches, and it's moral imperative that we ensure everybody. It's a moral imperative that people, there's one moral imperative, one, and that's beating Trump. Everything else is secondary. That's the ultimate act of public morality.
So I'm going to push you a little bit on some of these individual candidates and see what you think, because you say we got to have the right person to have a big victory, win the Senate, keep the House. What do you think of the Biden campaign?
So, first of all of the guys that run the campaign are friends of Bob Trump and I forever. All right, there's not a person I know that does not like Joe Biden, Vice President Biden. All right, I think he's had on the whole, a admirable public career. And if the ultimate thing would happen, he wins Iowa and New Hampshire, and we just shut the thing down and go with a nominee. That's not going to happen. He's going to be tested and stressed like crazy on the campaign trail. This thing is going to go on and on and on. I would be delighted if he was president. I'd be totally fine with that. I just don't. But Biden is running on taking the country to 2015. Which is, I'm serious. The Democrats have not run a real change candidate, since Obama in 2008. And it's fine. He's certainly qualified, and by temperament, by background, by judgment, the people around him are all qualified. Fine.
But you don't love the message.
Well, tell me what it is, and I'll
the message is.
I'll tell you what I hadn't been able to decipher it yet.
It's on his last commercial in Iowa that just went up yesterday. Vote Biden, beat Trump. That's his whole message.
That's fine. That's enough for me. Okay, but I don't. Do I think that he can run the table? I'm doubtful, but I'm fine.
What about some of the other people in the race? What about Buttigieg?
Well, first of all, just so you know, I've endorsed Michael Bennet. So he says, why you do that? He's not going to win. Probably won't. But if Michael Bennet runs third in New Hampshire, we're going to pick up 55 senators.
Michael Bennett's a senator from Colorado.
That's okay.
That's his problem, that you had to ask that question.
And if he runs 6 in New Hampshire, then I'll go to Plan B. But I'm going to be. My decision on who I'm going to be for is based on one thing. Who can do the best in November based on my judgment at the time? Because if we don't have a big election, I'm telling you, in the entire country depends on what the Democratic Party does. The entire country depends. The Democratic Party is the only thing standing between the United States of America and the abyss of lawlessness. All right? That's it. That's the only hope. I know a lot of you are Republicans. I know some of you never voted for a Democrat. And it's a kind of odd, clumsy, awkward, vast, kind of screwed up thing. But that's the only thing between you and the abyss. And the more of you that see that and come in, the better it's going to be. I mean, they're telling you right in front of your eyes that the standard in this country, if you do something in pursuit of your political interests, you cannot, it's totally legal. I mean, it's like, come on.
By that standard, Richard Nixon was innocent. Yeah, because they were just trying to do it to get him reelected.
Yeah, people do stuff to get reelected. Yeah. But I'm just saying, this is a fact. That's not an argument. That's all that's between us and total lawlessness. Then we have to adjust. But right now, we got to get this guy out of here pronto.
So if Bennett doesn't make it,
okay,
and Biden falters, who the hell else we got?
Klobuchar, Warren, Mayor Pete. I'm fine. I mean, look, I wish Mitch Landrieu would have run. But you know what they say in the Marine Corps? Wish in one hand, shit in the other, see which one fills up the fastest. I think Mitch had the political skill that you have to do something like this, but it didn't. He didn't want to run, so I can't do anything about it.
So get more specific about Buttigieg or Bloomberg, for example.
So, all right, let's take Buttigieg. So I'll tell you all a story. I'm a storyteller. We had a governor in Louisiana back in the 50s, 40s. His name was Earl Long. He's like actually one of my favorite politicians, but kind of what you think he is kind of raw-hued.
Isn't he? Didn't he check himself out of the mental institution?
Yeah.
After he'd been committed?
Yeah, and he didn't hang out with the right people. So the right people got together, and they picked a candidate. And there's a guy named Fred Proust, true story. He was a Ford dealer in Formerville, Louisiana. It's a town about 8 miles from the Arkansas border. And Fred Proust was exactly who you think he is. And I asked Mary Pete, and I said, so Earl says, you know, Fred Proust is running against me. He's a fine Christian gentleman. He's on a deacon in the First Baptist Church. He's a Boy Scout leader. He's got a Ford dealership. If you buy a Ford from Fred Proust, he's going to give you a good deal. But by the way, if it breaks and you come in, he's going to give you a loan. He's not going to leave you high and dry. But if you got to buy 2 Fords, you got to go somewhere else because he ain't big enough to handle a deal. All right? In other words, and I said, May, I'm going to ask you this question because there are more people in the Denver public school system than there are in the city of South Bend. So the question he has to answer, not is the guy smart, not is he patriotic, not is he honest, is can you convince us in the country that you can make the leap from being mayor of South Bend to president? And I'm not saying that you can't, but that's the question that he has to answer.
Is he answering it so far?
You know, he's kind of gotten in the back and forth of stuff.
He's gotten into contention.
He's gotten himself, and he's got to get a good night in Iowa so he can get back into conversation. I'd love him back into conversation. I think he brings a lot to it.
What about Bloomberg, who's not in Iowa, not in New Hampshire?
Okay, when he started, the whole thing was, what's he doing? What's his path there? Actually, this race right now is playing out decently for Bloomberg. So Bloomberg's theory of the case is Bernie takes off, Biden doesn't make it, and I'm here. That's not impossible. All right? Now, if you're taking that long shot and you're sitting here today and you're the Bloomberg campaign, you're actually pretty much on schedule. Because that was your theory that you could get one-on-one with Bernie Sanders. And needless to say, he doesn't have to worry about money. And as you start losing, the money dries up, the support dries up. So, look, I think he's likely to be the next president? No. But I think the election is actually developing a little bit along lines that he was hoping it would.
My own view is if Sanders emerges, wins the first 2, maybe wins Nevada, and South Carolina, Biden limps through, his money will dry up. He'll have a hard time keeping going, and Bloomberg will spend $400 million on Super Tuesday, and spend another $400 million before the convention. But what if you did have that fight, and Bloomberg emerged?
Third party for sure.
Yeah, and what would the Bernie people do?
Look, does everybody here know who Jill Stein is? Right, Jill Stein got more votes in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin than Trump won by. Jill Stein was totally, Google a picture, Mike Flynn, Jill Stein, Vladimir Putin. She was totally funded by the Russians. And let me tell you, they're going to be all over the left. All over them. It's just a fact. And if you got to wake up, and know what's going on. So, yes, there is a real possibility that there is a significant schism in the Democratic Party. And it's frightening.
Because if that happens, the Democrats don't win.
Again, look at Nate in Florida. I'm sorry. You know, and so what they do is they just, every election is rigged against them. Everybody is a corporate sellout. Everybody, you know, is controlled by something else, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't win. And they really not, you know what the German communists would say in the 30s? You know how stupid these people are? They would be in the street and say, the worst about it, after Hitler, us. Yeah, that worked out well, didn't it? That's the mentality. The worse it gets, the better, because that means the revolution is coming.
So how do you get the Sanders people, 20% of whom in 2016 did not vote for Hillary Clinton in the general, by most estimates? How does someone consolidate their support if Bernie's not the nominee?
Well, I mean, a lot of people. One of the big problems that the Democratic Party has, and we'll get into this, is this cultural arrogance. That we're the hip, the diverse, the educated, you know, we're the cool kids, and you know we have the, you know, bowls and wraps and lattes, and the rest of the country doesn't have that. I don't know how to tell you. They got lattes in Shreveport, but forget that for the moment. And people, they hear that. And if you tell somebody that you're cooler than them, they'll hear it, and they're not going to like it. Did anybody ever had the impression that Bill Clinton ever thought he was smarter than anybody else? Or even Obama? I saw Susan Eisenhower. Eisenhower never gave you the impression that he thought he was better than a corporal. And now we're living here where we assume some sort of cultural superiority to other people. And that's what caused, and that's what really hurt us in 16. And you got to get out there, and you want to be a majoritarian political party. You don't want to win by one demographic overperforming in one cycle. If you want power, you have to be able to appeal to a broad spectrum. And there are things that you could be for that would be. There are a couple of left-wing ideas I like. I like the idea of baby bonds.
Baby bonds.
That where, depending, if let's say a child is born in poverty in the United States, you open an account and the government puts like $2,000, and by the time they're 18, they have $50,000 in the bank. And it can be used as some kind of limit. You can't take it down to the casino and put it on black. But I've come to the conclusion in my old age that the cure for a lack of money is, drum roll, please.
Money.
Money. Give it to them.
So why, you mentioned 16. Why did this so infect the Hillary campaign, as you suggest, in 2016? What about deplorables?
I don't, yeah, that is, when I started working for the Clintons in 1991, she was much more skeptical of corporate power than he was. She never liked NAFTA. And I don't know, that just isn't her, and I think she just got surrounded by people, and I don't know. It's just, if something changed, because that just, no one, in the whole Clinton land, she was always really kind of skeptical of a lot of this stuff. And I think they bought into the Obama and the demographics and
data analytics.
Yeah, analytics. He would call there, and they said, well, analytics says this. What? How can I argue with analytics? What the shit is that? All right? You come in, you say, well, analytics says that. Well, I was just out there and somebody told me this. I don't know where they fit into analytics. And you fall into this technology worship. And you were telling me, so Bill Clinton's and Chuck Champion's are kind of political pro to Michigan. And so Chuck calls back and says, I don't know, it don't look too good out here. And so Robbie says, we've run the simulation, and out of 100 times, we win 98.2% of the time. We say, I don't know, but I'm worried about the 1.8.
Talk about the basket full of deplorables, because you and I talked about it yesterday night.
From what I understand, she had said it multiple times before, and nobody on that staff, but I guarantee you that they all had, no one on the staff said, well, Senator, maybe we could tweak that a little bit. Right? No, I'm going to try this instead of that. The most damning thing in politics is to confirm an existing suspicion. That's the worst thing can happen to you. And that confirmed an existing suspicion.
She was out of touch.
Right,
elite.
and then was making money and was, Goldman Sachs speeches and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I never understood why she made Goldman Sachs speeches if
Well,
she knew she was going to run.
2,000 speeches. I'll speak to anybody pay me.
Yeah, but you're not running for president. If you're running for president, you probably ought not to do certain things.
I agree. Yeah, and look, and everybody, but let's don't forget the Russians. I mean, Kathleen Hall Jameson, Nate Silver show you pretty conclusively that the Russians affected the election. All right? You had the stupid email story. There's a Harvard study, and when you see it, it makes you nauseated. All right? And the New York Times telling their readers a week before the election that the Russians were not trying to help Trump. All right? And that's after writing, 2,000. But what about the emails, James? Well, what about the emails? So, of course, now we find out that the whole Barr sends this U.S. attorney in Utah to dig into everything. He said, well, look, I've looked at everything. There's nothing wrong here. So the Clintons are very honest people. Well, I wish we'd have known that in October of 2016. Nice, thank you for telling us.
So I want to do two things before we open this up to the audience. Look ahead and tell us what you think is going to happen. Prediction's perilous, but what do you think is going to happen in this Democratic race in November?
I don't know. Bill Belichick knows more about professional football than anybody. He does not know who's going to win the game Sunday. All right? He has no idea. But, Nick Saban didn't know who was going to win. All right? But having said that, I've always, if you go to the doctor, and the doctor takes a bunch of things, he says, you know what, in 9 months and 2 weeks, you're going to drop dead. God damn it, you drop dead. Well, is that a good doctor? Shit, man, that guy was right. He was right on the money. So, what can we do to affect the outcome? All right? And if a candidate is able to communicate, and they can learn and they can get better, and as this goes, stories are going to develop. This game is going to develop out. It's going to go on for a long time. There's going to be massive turnout. There's going to be shifts in public opinion. And there might even, all kinds of things are going to happen. And one thing I will predict, that the engagement levels are so breathtakingly high in American politics that it is going to produce surprising results. I hope the results are surprising on the upside.
Well, yeah, if you look at 2018, the turnout was absolutely unbelievable. It was the greatest midterm turnout in history, at least since women were enfranchised.
So this is important, Bob. So after we lose in 2016, the party collectively says, look, we got to go out and recruit really qualified people, and they got to talk about things that matter. And so we went out, we recruited really qualified people, CIA agents, military people, business people, tons of women, tons of diverse people, and we ran on that. We had the biggest margin in history in an off-year election. We had the biggest turnout since women were granted the right to vote. We picked up congressional seats in everywhere, suburban New Jersey, suburban Oklahoma, suburban Texas, Georgia, Orange County, California. And the next day we start talking about pronouns. All right? And everybody just, after having that experience and going, shit, it actually works if you get qualified, articulate people that talk about things that matter in people's lives. And if we go back to that, we're going to win a lot of elections. If we go forward with this kind of cultural arrogance that everybody's dumber than us, then we're not going to do very well.
You talked about the Democratic Party as the last thing standing between America and the abyss. We actually need two governing parties in this country. We have to have a Republican Party because sometimes they are going to be in power. You were part in 1992 of the remaking of the Democratic Party with Bill Clinton after it had lost election after election after election. Do you think if Donald Trump loses in 2020, Republicans lose the Senate, that they'll rethink who they are?
No.
No. You think they'll just stay right? They'll continue to be a Trump party?
Understand, Trumpism, in my opinion, is the biggest threat we faced internally. But more than communism, this country was never, the idea, and Trump is based on the single idea that in order for me to win, in order for somebody to win, another person has to lose. They've gone nakedly right into everything you can imagine where, other Republicans say, well, I don't know if I want to go there. He went there, and they went with him. They own it. So let's say Bernie Sanders is a nominee. He wins. Nancy Pelosi is Speaker. Mitch McConnell's there. And Trump retires. Whatever. I don't want to bush him. But whatever. Trumpism survives. It's going to be there forever. The only way. I watch these. I love these documentaries in wartime. I don't know how many times. The Battle of Stalingrad. And I was looking at those Nazi soldiers, and that's the way. That's what has to happen after that. They have to look emaciated, starving, freezing, defeated. That's the only way you're going to eradicate this. It has to be taken on and beaten at the polls. They got to look like a Vermont soldier in January of 1943. It ended poorly. All right, they got to be Yamamoto limping back to Tokyo in June of 1942. If you just hold them off, they're coming back. And they are the Republican Party. All these guys, that's it. They went there. And once he went there, people say, God, look at all the crowd, man. He's really... I wonder what's underneath all of this.
Part of it's race.
Part?
I think a lot of Americans are discombobulated by two things. One is the changing demographic nature of the country. We're becoming a majority non-white country. A lot of people find that very difficult. Some of it's overt racism. Some of it's how do I hold on to my traditional values. Right. And there have been vast cultural changes in the country that people are not comfortable with. Sure. And so there's a natural constituency. Demographically, it's a shrinking constituency, but it's out there.
So I just got to, so this is just me, but I'm just going to give you an example because, when I say cultural arrogance, so a guy who's an editorial writer at the New York Times sends out the following tweet. Obviously, LSU's professional football players aren't there for their classes, but this is next-level stuff. LSU board cancels classes Monday and Tuesday. Mr. Applebaum asked, do the Warren Sanders free public college proposals include LSU or would they apply only to actual schools? All right, now let's unpack that for a second. All right. First of all, our graduation rate is generally in the top 25 in the country, and I'm throwing in Stanford and Northwestern and Duke and everything else. All right. Secondly, and he says our team is professional. When you think of the LSU football team, does a certain demographic come to mind? Huh? So let's forget the arrogance. I'd like to. I invited my class because I answered back. What are you insinuating that somehow or another our players are less honorable than other players? Because that's clear. And so I don't know how to say this, but people in Georgia, they play college football. It's a swing state. California is a solid blue performing state. You know what? They play college football in California. People go to the games. It's part of their life. And so, of course, that hits, and then everybody comes, hey, James, look at that fucking New York Times. You know, I can't answer for these people. I can't answer for this guy. But that is such the level of we're smarter than everybody else. You know, I went to Penn, and you went to Mississippi State. Okay, fine. But that's what it is, and we got to get away from that. Like I said, you couldn't imagine Bill Clinton doing anything like this. You couldn't imagine Obama doing anything like this. If somebody did something like this in 92, I'd have gone up there and beat the crap out of it.
Okay. We have like eight and a half minutes, and I want to give some audience questions.
Good.
Back there.
My question is, what can we do to help the Democrats win in the fall?
Question is, what can we, that is everybody sitting out there, who wants to, do to help the Democrats win in the fall?
Okay. Obviously, what I would do is pick a campaign that you're interested in. Send it a check. If I were one state, if I'm saying, you know, I just want to do something, I feel like I got to help. If I could go to one state and tell you, it would probably be North Carolina. All right. North Carolina is the ultimate swing state. You have a governor's race, but you have a Democratic governor who's up. You got a vulnerable Republican senator. You got a chance of 3 or 4 House seat pickups because of redistricting. And I'll make one prediction: is that the Democrats will run better in North Carolina than they will in Wisconsin. All right. The other place you can go is Georgia. Georgia has 2 Senate seats up, and we potentially have 2 really good recruits in Georgia. So that's obviously. But what I would tell someone, an activist or a donor, pick a spot and make a difference right in that spot. And pick a place where you kind of like it, you want to learn about it, I get my students, they're assigned to follow one race, know everything about it, because that's the way you learn. If you try to know everything, it's not worth it. But if you just focus down and bore it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there and then back there. Yeah, go ahead, and then back there.
2 quick things. One, what would you think of a Biden-Romney ticket? And the other thing is, how is your fabulous wife?
How's my fabulous wife doing? But she's in New York moving my daughter in, and I saw Anna Quinlan, and she said moving is like the psychological equivalent of like getting married or dying or something, you know. And my daughter and my wife have strong ideas about where the furniture should be. So, but she's doing fine. I got in too late last night because of the time differential, but they're moving furniture.
Biden Romney.
No, that's not where the country.
But that's kind of a cooperation.
That's always the kind of dream that we're going to put together some unity government, and I don't think it's possible. No, yeah.
Okay, back all the way back there.
How did the academic, woke, PC, hard left find such a home in the Democratic Party and become so intimidating to Democrats?
How did the academic hard left find a home in the Democratic Party and become so intimidating to Democrats?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. And, you know, one of the problems, and I have this too, liberals have, we love expertise. All right? I mean, we just do. We overvalue it. And so they come in and also the elites of the Democratic Party, and out here or Manhattan, you know, you become overly reliant, and you got to learn how to take their money and not their advice. That's the secret
James will tell you the hardest thing in a presidential campaign is all the big givers or bundlers. They want to call in and they have the one single great idea that's going to win the campaign, and the truth is it would destroy it.
Right. In budgets, you got to do that. Okay. Oh, that's a great idea. Just forget about it.
Okay, here. And then I'll come over. Yeah, now, yes.
I hesitate to use the metaphor, but I think there's an elephant in the room.
Okay.
I'm going to repeat the question.
What do you think of the fact that although Bernie Sanders says he's not Jewish, his parents were, and you've got, you're looking at me and shaking your head.
No, I'm not shaking my head. I'm thinking.
Shaking your head. Okay. And then we've got our guy from New York who's running in, and everybody thinks that he can be the savior here. In today's climate, do you really think that having these two Jewish candidates, one that says he's not really and the other one who says he is, you think having these two candidates is going to be an effect on this election? And is anybody thinking about it?
So the question is, with two Jewish candidates, Bernie Sanders, and by the way, I have to tell you, he does not deny that he's Jewish.
No,
I mean,
he doesn't practice.
well, that's, yeah, but there are a lot of secular Jews.
Like 80% of the Jews I know.
Okay. Having Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg, is that the elephant in the room?
Right.
Would that have an impact on the election? Presumably what you're asking is, can a Jew get elected president of the United States? My own answer is absolutely yes.
I don't think Joe Lieberman cost Al Gore a vote. All right? And just for myself, I'm 75 years old. I grew up in the South. For all of my life, I was profoundly aware of who was black and who wasn't. And I became aware who was gay, who's not, who's Jewish, who's not. At some point in my life, I just said, I really don't give a shit anymore. I ain't going to worry about it. And it was the most liberating moment of my life. All right? I just really... And by the way, nor do I dislike rural white people. I happen to be one. I grew up as rural as you can be. And some of us went to college, some didn't, some are married, some are not, some go to church, some don't, some have guns, some don't. And it somehow or another, it has become acceptable to just lump all rural white people together. But we're different. We fight with each other. All right? We're important too. We count. So, but I don't think it'll hurt. But it's an old question of, in a focus group, they asked somebody, said, what do you think the biggest problem we have here in Kentucky, ignorance or apathy? And the guy said, man, I don't know and I don't give a shit.
Okay, we got time for two more. Go ahead. You've been... I'll come back.
You were brilliant in Clinton with, is the economy stupid? We do have a good economy. At the end of the day, most people still vote with their pocketbooks. So how does this impact the
Right.
election?
Okay. First of all, will you get...
The question is,
the economy
we have a good economy. Most people vote the economy. Why won't presumably that help Trump?
Okay, so, first of all, I don't know that it's not helping him. He's at 43. Maybe without this, he would be at 33. All right? The second thing is, where you really get credit in the economy is when you come in and it's bad and it gets better. All right? This economy is good. It's 2.1. With $1 trillion worth of stimulus. And most of the economic growth in this country, by the way, is in counties that Hillary carried. Right, here it's booming. Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego. You go to Merced, California, or Modesto. It's a whole different world.
Right here. One last question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Keep going. Keep going.
I live in rural North Carolina.
Good. Go back home. Get the hell out of California. What are you doing here?
Just visiting my mother. But the issue in rural North Carolina is there's a tremendous amount of voter suppression and there's
Sure.
a tremendously focused strategic campaign
Absolutely.
to tell rural people that they can't vote.
Voter suppression in rural North Carolina. How big a problem is it? And we have 19 seconds.
Suppression
In
But
general,
we have to stop.
is
Your
a huge-
question has to stop because we only have now 13 seconds.
Okay, well, we're just going to go over. What are we going to do?
They turn the mic off after
Okay.
1 minute.
The most seminal event, in my opinion, in modern American politics was Bush v. Gore, because that told them they could get away with it. And that just, and all the liberal press said, well, you got to acquiesce. But the court has spoken, the country was blah, blah, blah. Okay. So gerrymandering, voter suppression, you name it. They get away with it. Merrick Garland, don't care. Because they exercise power ruthlessly to stay in power. And that's where we are. There's understand, we have, no political party other than modern Democrats has won the popular vote in 6 out of 7 elections. We had the biggest majority of a House election in the history of the United States. We have no power. And of course they're going to do voter suppression. They know that they're not going to win if everybody votes. I mean, that's a given. So what do? Is you stop certain people from voting. And they put the voting machines in certain precincts. And yes, it's a terrible problem. Now, what you can use it for is motivation. They are doing everything they can to get you not to do this. Therefore, you really want to do this. But you got to use it politically, and you got to use it as a motivator. But yes, they're going to do that in North Carolina. Geez, they do anything because the state is going to turn. It's going to be blue in 2020 if we have any kind of candidate. I mean, get over it. You're going to live in a blue state.
Okay, I want to thank James. I want to thank all of you. Great session.